He wasn't running. He wasn't stealing. He was just a kid with a shopping bag, a smile, and a future brighter than most could dream. But within minutes, that future was face down on the pavement, crushed beneath the weight of a badge and a bias he never stood a chance against. His name was Jamal Thompson, and all he wanted was to buy his sister a birthday gift. What happened next turned a quiet Sunday morning into a national headline and a father's worst nightmare. If only they had checked the truth before pulling the trigger. Because what came next would shatter everything they thought they knew. Sunday mornings were Jamal Thompson's favorite. The world felt lighter then, before school stress, before headlines, before the noise. Just him, his playlist, and a planned surprise his little sister with the perfect birthday gift. He'd saved for weeks, working shifts at the library, tucking away every dollar until he had enough. The mall buzzed with laughter and weekend chatter as Jamal held up a blue sweater, picturing Sophia's smile when she opened it. To anyone watching, he was just another teenager, bright, polite, hopeful. But in a country where skin color still writes the first chapter of every story, hope can turn dangerous fast. Because while Jamal thought he was just shopping, someone else thought they saw a suspect. And that single mistake was about to ignite a storm. He thought it was just another Sunday, but this one would rewrite his entire life. Jamal stepped out of the store, sunlight spilling over the mall parking lot, the kind of warm, ordinary glow that made everything feel safe. His phone buzzed, a text from his dad saying, "Proud of you, son." He smiled, bag in hand, thinking of Sophia's birthday cake waiting at home. But behind him, a voice crackled through a radio. Black male, late teens, dark sweater, backpack, possible suspect fleeing east exit. The words hung in the air, detached from the truth, yet powerful enough to summon a nightmare. Within minutes, Officer Derek Hayes spotted Jamal. One look, one assumption, and everything spiraled. "You, stop right there." The command sliced through the calm. Jamal froze, confused, heart hammering. "Me?" His hands rose automatically, just like his mother had taught him. Stay calm. Be respectful. Come home safe. But safety wasn't his to control anymore. Hayes closed the distance, hand already near his weapon, eyes burning with suspicion. In seconds, Jamal was against the hood of a car, cheek pressed to hot metal, his shopping bag spilling open. The blue sweater tumbled to ground. Proof of innocence, ignored like a whisper in a hurricane. He tried to speak, to explain, but Hayes's voice cut sharper. "Stop resisting." Cameras lifted, phones recorded, yet no one stepped in. The crowd watched, some silent, some murmuring, but nobody dared move closer. A security guard mumbled about, matching a description, and that was all it took. Jamal's identity, student, son, scholar, vanished, replaced by a label that carried centuries of weight. Suspect. The officer's knee pinned him down. Pain exploded through his shoulder, but worse than pain was a humiliation. The world blurred with flashing lights, raised voices, and disbelief. A store clerk, Emily Carter, rushed forward, holding out proof. The receipt, the transaction record, time-stamped and clear. He paid for it. He didn't steal anything, she pleaded. But Hayes didn't care. Power had its own logic. "Step back, ma'am," he barked, hand hovering over his holster. The crowd gasped. Emily froze, fear flickering across her face. Jamal's chest tightened. He could taste asphalt, hear his own pulse roaring in his ears. Every second dragged like a lifetime. A sergeant arrived, taking in the scene. One boy on the ground, one officer towering above him, dozens of eyes recording history in real time. The sergeant picked up the crumpled receipt, scanned it, hesitated, but did nothing. Procedure over principle. "Bring him in," he said quietly. The cuffs clicked around Jamal's wrists, metal-biting skin. Cold, final. He was led toward the patrol car as whispers rippled through the crowd. "He didn't do anything. Why aren't they letting him go? This is messed up." But even as people spoke, they filmed instead of helping. Inside the car, Jamal's reflection stared back from the window, bloodied, terrified, disbelieving. Somewhere, his dad's phone call rang unanswered, seconds away from discovering what the world had done to his son. The ride to the station was silent, except for sirens outside and Jamal's quiet, broken breathing. In that moment, every talk his mother ever gave him replayed in his head. The warnings, the rules, the unspoken truth that his skin was a weapon others feared, even when his hands were empty. And still, he clung to one hope, that someone somewhere would see the truth. But truth alone doesn't always set you free. Sometimes, it only exposes how deep the injustice goes. He thought the worst was behind him, but the real reckoning hadn't even started yet. The holding room was cold, too bright, too quiet, the kind of silence that hums in your ears when fear fills every corner. Jamal sat alone, wrists red from the cuffs, shoulder throbbing where the officer's knee had pressed him into the pavement. The clock on the wall ticked past noon. He imagined his mom calling, his dad pacing, his sister waiting by the window with birthday balloons that would never get used. Outside, officers moved the station like nothing had happened. Like dragging an innocent black teenager off the street was routine. Then a door opened. Sergeant Diaz stepped in, eyes heavy, saying they were verifying footage. Footage? Jamal's heart raced. That footage would clear him, show the truth. Minutes later, a murmur rippled through the building. Phones buzzed. Screens lit up. The video from the plaza had gone viral. Millions were watching, his face pressed against concrete, his body pinned, his future collapsing in real time. Jamal didn't know it yet, but outside, 10 unmarked black SUVs had surrounded the station. Inside one of them, a man watched the same video, his hands shaking, jaw clenched. It was Jamal's father. And beside him, 10 federal agents waiting for his word. He was the FBI's regional director, a man who'd spent years defending justice, only to see it brutalize his own son. Inside, Officer Hayes was laughing in the break room, saying, "The kid will be fine." Just another loud case. Diaz's radio crackled. "Sir, we got multiple federal vehicles outside." Before he could respond, the front doors burst open. Agents flooded in, armed but measured, authority cutting through the chaos. Hayes froze, half a sandwich in his hand. The man leading them stepped forward, eyes locked on him. "Where's my son?" The entire station fell silent. Jamal, hearing the commotion, stood, trembling. The door opened again. His father filled the doorway, rage and heartbreak battling behind his eyes. For a moment, they just stared at each other. Two men connected by blood, divided by a system that saw one as power and the other as threat. "Dad," Jamal whispered. His father turned to Diaz. "Release him. Now." Diaz stammered something about procedure, but the agents had already stepped in, unlocking Jamal's cuffs. The sound of metal falling to the floor was louder than any gunshot. Jamal's hand shook as his father pulled him into an embrace. Tight, trembling, desperate. Cameras still rolled. Every second streamed live across the country. Hayes tried to speak, but his words died when his badge was seized, his rights read aloud by the very agents he once thought untouchable. For the first time, the crowd watching online saw something different. Not just another tragedy, but accountability knocking at the door. Jamal's father turned toward the cameras, voice steady but shaking with fury. "You see what happens when the people meant to protect forget who they serve?" No one answered. The station was a vacuum of guilt and silence. Jamal looked down at his wrists, red marks fading, scars that would never fully heal. He wasn't sure what came next, only that the world was watching now. He thought being free would bring relief, but the truth was heavier than the cuffs ever were. Jamal walked out of the station into a world that suddenly felt heavier, quieter, different. The air was cool, but his skin still burned where the cuffs had bitten into his wrists. Reporters swarmed the parking lot, cameras flashing, questions flying, but all he could think about was going home. To his mother's trembling hands, his sister's tear-streaked face, the blue sweater now folded and stained on the kitchen counter. The agents had done their job. Officer Hayes was suspended. Investigations opened, statements made. Yet as Jamal sat in his father's car, the victory felt hollow. Because for every Jamal freed, how many others never made a home? The video of his arrest racked up millions of views overnight. Hashtags, outrage, promises of change. Politicians spoke, protests formed, timelines filled with thoughts and prayers. But Jamal, didn't want pity. He wanted peace. He wanted a world where doing everything right, being polite, being careful, being good, was enough to keep you alive. The night after, he stood in front of the mirror and saw the marks on his skin, reminders of how close he came becoming a headline instead of a heartbeat. His father tried to smile, tried to convince him that justice was coming. But even he, an FBI director, knew that accountability doesn't erase the memory of asphalt against your cheek. In the days that followed, strangers called Jamal brave, resilient, lucky. But Jamal didn't feel lucky. He felt haunted by a truth he could never unsee, that the system his father worked for, the one built to protect, was still broken enough to nearly destroy his son. When the cameras left, when the noise faded, what remained was silence and a promise. Jamal returned to school, to his scholarship, to his sister's laughter, but he carried something new, a purpose. He began to speak, to tell his story, to remind people that the world only changes when it's forced to look in the mirror. And sometimes that mirror is a video, a headline, or a boy who lived to tell what others could not. The mall reopened, the officers moved on, and life pretended to go back to normal. But Jamal knew better, because what happened to him wasn't an accident. It was a reflection of a truth too many still choose to ignore. So he keeps asking, every time another story breaks, another name trends, how many more have fall before being black isn't seen as a threat? Before justice doesn't need a camera to exist?